Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Cool Colas here to bring you the hustler's perspective. Hope you guys are having a good day today. I probably look a little bit tired. It's a little bit late tonight, but I want to make sure I get this video out to you guys. So this week I'm doing my promotion, which is I'm going to be doing a video a day for an entire week. So you guys get a chance to just see something new every single day, which I'm sure you all are going to enjoy, because today I definitely got something really cool and interesting for you guys to view. So that being said, let's kind of get into the topic here. I want to talk to you all about 5 lessons that being broke has taught me. So you all are probably wondering why I want to talk about this topic specifically. First of all, before I even get into that, I want to define what being broke means. I don't mean, you're a college student and you just need money to go to a party and like buy drinks and stuff like that. When I say broke, I mean literally broke, meaning like you can't pay your rent, you're about to get evicted, you don't have food in your refrigerator, you don't know how you're going to pay your next bill, you don't know how you're going to pay your car note, you don't know how you're going to pay your car insurance, you don't know how you're going to be able to take care of any of those necessities that you really need to take care of. So that's kind of the direction I was going with a lot of this. So the first thing that I initially want to specify is that when I say broke, I specifically mean drowning in debts, like extreme hardship, drowning in debts. Now, I don't have any money for to do fun things and things like that, but like you can't even take care of yourself in a basic level. I want to get down to the science of being broke, and I want to basically stress to you all the things that I personally have learned from being broke, because the situation can happen to anybody at any time, and then when it hits you, it'll do it very suddenly. Nobody ever plans to just be broke. The only way that can even be somewhat possible is if you know that there's maybe a layoff at your job, or you might not be doing so well at your job and you feel like you might get fired or something like that. But that's the only way to kind of even predict that something like that could happen, where you would go broke, where you wouldn't have any money to take care of your stuff. So I wanted to give this lesson, or at least like the lessons that I learned from this, because of what I have been through personally and how quickly this situation has hit me and what I had to learn from it very quickly. So I think the problem with being broke is a lot of times, like, you're very depressed by your situation. You don't know how you're going to come out of it. You don't know what good is going to come out of it. So what I want to focus on here are the lessons that came from being broke versus the negative feeling that, of course, gives you because of the fact that you can't really provide for yourself. So another thing I want to do is I want to be able to instill this idea of understanding net worth and in an initial sense, and how important it is, especially when it comes to this idea of being broke. So again, I'm hoping to kind of reach out to people who either will have the situation at some point, or have the situation currently, or just maybe didn't really see the positive aspects of the situation. So I kind of wanted to appeal to all of those different types of people. So the first thing I want to kind of get into here, the first lesson that I learned specifically from this situation, was that you have a more open-minded perspective at, when it comes to financial situations, and why individuals make certain choices. So in other words, I feel like the first thing that I personally learned is that you feel more open to understanding why a person may have a certain struggle, or why their financial situation is what it is. Or if you don't know it, you're understanding of why they make the choices that they make. You don't really question them, you don't judge them, you don't wonder what's going on with them, and why they would make this I guess decision based off of having this little money or this like large amount of money. It gives you just perspective, because you've been in your own situation where you had certain things that needed to be taken care of, and then you spent money on things that other people may not be able to understand, or you refuse to spend money on certain things that other people refuse to understand why you couldn't do it. So these are the things I kind of want to put in perspective for you. First of all, it helps you to become a very empathetic and sympathetic person. A lot of people don't feel those things are necessary, and that those things are basically unimportant because of desensitization. I would argue that that is a hypocritical ideology, because everybody is sensitive to certain things. Everybody has certain things that they care about more than others. So desensitization is a selfish thing, because I mean, I think in some aspects it happens because of, you know, one's familiarity with something, because they're used to something happening over and over again. But desensitization for another person's situation is never a good thing, because it's hypocritical. Because then when your situation comes up, maybe you want, you know, somebody to understand where you're coming from on this thing or that thing, and if you don't, then, you know, we're talking on a whole nother topic of sociopathism or something weird. But anyway, I'm not trying to ramble. All I'm saying is sympathy and empathy are things that are that you understand. You're empathetic because you can kind of feel that same pain because of what you've been through. You're sympathetic because you like are like kind of, I guess, understanding of what happened to that person. So you may not be able to actually experience it, but you understand the pain that it may bring them, and because of that, you in turn probably will have compassion before them because of it. So I didn't want to get those terms kind of mixed up, because they all have different meanings: compassion, sympathy, and empathy. But basically, I'm saying that it gives you that ability to better understand people's situations and be more sympathetic to what they've been through, because you've been through it and you know what it feels like, and you know the hardships, and you also know that other people who have not experienced it will not know what it's like. So these are the other things that I kind of I feel people do, and in my opinion, I think this happens because people have not experienced this type of scenario, and if they have, they just didn't really learn from it very well. And I hear these comments all the time, and I want to kind of bring them to surface. These comments all the time, and they bother me because of what I've been through, and they probably should bother you if you've been through this, you know, been through a financial situation as well too. And this all has to do with perspective. The first comment that I always hear that people say is, or something. This is just an example. He's too young to be homeless and begging on the streets. He needs to go out and get a job. Or another comment would be, you have money, paying for so and so shouldn't be a problem because you got it like that. Or another one would be, the reason he is broke is because he's lazy. He's not doing anything. So, I mean, that's why his situation's obviously happening to him. Or here's one of my other ones that I hear all the time. He has a coupon for everything. He's just cheap. So all of those statements are very narrow-minded and show a lack of experience and a lack of empathy and sympathy, because you don't try to go and understand someone's situation. So you think that you have the best judgment of what's going on. So you therefore are like judging and criticizing their decisions based off of not even necessarily completely knowing their financial situation, which I think is wrong. And it's wrong because you're making a crass judgment by a lack of experience, and you're making an insensitive judgment or criticism based off of lack of experience, which both show ignorance and kind of nastiness. It's just something that's not really needed. I hear these things all the time. First of all, when you hear something about a person's young and like they're too young to be homeless, you never know what happened to them. They could be in their moment where they just lost their job and they don't know what to do, because the truth be told, there are a lot of parents out here who aren't teaching their kids or their children. I say kids because some of these people actually are adults, so I'm speaking on people who are older adults and children, are not teaching their offspring, which is probably a better way to put it, their offspring ways to, like, new ways to win. Like, you know, if you lose a job or whatever, and they tell you, hey, you can't move back here, you can't move back home, you have to still make it on your own and stand on your own 2 feet. So you just never know what a person's situation is. They could be going through a storm at that moment, and you could have talked about them or judged them by the storm that they're experiencing at that moment. So maybe they just ended up homeless. Maybe they're trying to get back on their feet. You don't really know that, but you were quick to say that, oh, they need to stop begging, yada, yada, yada. So I think that you just need to think about that stuff before you open your mouth. And then when you say this, and the second one is one of the ones I hate a lot too. I always hear, I used to hear this too, especially when I had my old job maybe a couple years back, I would hear, oh, you have money, you can buy this and that and that. My thing is, you don't know what all my debts are. You don't know all the things that I have to pay. You don't know what I'm taking care of financially. You don't know what payment plans I'm on. So before you sit there and you hear a number in your head and you think, oh, that's a lot of money for you, you better like take a better look to see, if that person really is struggling, and really if they have something that they, have to take care of that you don't really know of. Other than that, if you don't want to find out, then just close your mouth and don't say anything, because you really don't know. So that's the best way to, one, get checked, and two, be ignorant for the fact that you really don't know what's going on with another person. So I also think that the laziness excuse is ridiculous, because everybody likes to just deem the fact that because a result hasn't been reached, that person's being lazy and they're not doing anything. Again, that person could be going through their storm. So they could be in the process of trying to figure that out, and it hasn't worked out for them yet. But you didn't try to figure that out. You just deemed it as someone being lazy because you felt that there wasn't a result in front of you. As humans, we're wired to think that if we don't see a result in front of us, then obviously the issue is with whatever the person is not doing, which it could be, but don't deem it to laziness, because that makes it a whole nother thing. That deals with a lack of effort, not a lack of result. Those two things are totally different. Now, the idea of working and being a hustler can result in a positive result, but being lazy is not the same thing as I've tried and I haven't reached a result yet. And I think people are attributing those things too much. And as far as someone being too cheap, you can never really be too cheap unless like you're taking a hit on quality and you're trying to make a big time move. So for me personally, I think that with coupons, I mean, like, you're buying consumer goods that are going to be overpriced in some way. So I don't really see anything wrong with using a coupon, especially if you're trying to save money, you're trying to budget your money, you're trying to do, good stuff with your money so you can make it grow. So to me, like, I think anybody who feels that way or has to even describe someone as cheap in that way, especially with coupons, is just wasting their money, because it tells you a lot about their own mentality, especially if they feel that way. Because why would you call somebody else cheap if you're, like, if you're not cheap? So in other words, or if you are cheap, I guess. In other words, I just think that you should kind of think about those things before you say things about people. So another thing that you got to understand about perspectives is life happens and everybody has a different situation. You never know what someone went through. You never know if someone lost their job. You never know if all their stuff maybe like burned in a great fire. You just never know. Another thing too is that when you gain perspective, and then you have this willingness to have compassion for those who are hustling. So you may want to, reach a hand out to somebody who's hustling, because the truth be told, you always are going to need the help of someone else, and they're also going to need your help as well too. So as human species, we're dependent beings, and we're dependent on each other. So we should, make strides to help those out who actually are making a conscientious effort to change their lives positively. And also too, I think that with this perspective being said, the only thing that you have a low tolerance for with perspective, in other words, you don't really want to hear too much about, is you have a low tolerance for naive negativity. So just this idea of not really knowing, and then being negative about something that you don't really know, and then being stubborn about wanting to learn more about what a situation is. Those types of people, and people give off those vibes, like, it's hard to want to understand their perspective and why they see things the way that they see them, because they're not open to understanding what's really going on. So they're actually ignoring facts. And generally, when a person is being unfiltered, they're trying to give a truth, but then it doesn't become true if you don't really know all the facts. So what they tend to do at that point is they tend to say, hey, I'm stubborn, whether I'm wrong or right, I'm going to express my point, and that's going to be honesty from my mouth, but it's not really productive. So that's why, to me, like, I think that an open-minded person who has perspective will not really be feeling this idea of a person who is naive and negative. Like, you don't know the situation, but you still want to be negative, you still want to give your 2 cents, and you don't really want to find out what's going on. I think that's really hard to kind of understand and mesh with. So here's the second lesson that I have learned from being broke. The second thing is that there are a lot of things that I can live without that I didn't think that I could live without before. So I used to hear the statement all the time where, I would be trying to pay for something and I was trying to figure out the price. I'd be trying to figure out the price of like what that item was. And then someone would say something like, oh, it's only so and so dollars a month. That's not too bad. But my thing is, you don't know everything that I have set up. So when you make a statement like that, you're assuming that you already know my finances and you know what I can and cannot afford. Like, apparently, like you're my CPA because you know everything that's going on with me, tax wise, money wise, financial wise, everything. Because obviously, you can make that statement knowing good and well, what I can and cannot afford. I just think that with when we talk about necessities and things that you can and cannot live without, um, if we're talking about things that everybody I feel needs as a basic thing to be able to sustain a proper way of life, I personally think that's food, having some type of roof over your head to some extent, clothing, and only, and some people may hate me for this one, only because you want to avoid getting an indecent exposure charge, really, because it's part of the law. And then health insurance, because once again, it's part of the law to have health insurance. So with that being said, those are the four things that I believe are necessities. Some of them are by law because you don't have a choice because you could get in trouble for not doing some of those things. And the other two because they're obviously necessities. You have to be able to eat to live, and you have to be able to live somewhere. You can't live on the streets. There's people who live on the streets every day, but they don't want to do that. And then that's not like safe either as well too. So that could be a possible endangerment to your life. So that's why it's a necessity. I think that when you think about scaling back, you have to think about all the stuff, like I said, that you do need and that you don't need. Being broke, I've been in a situation where there were tons of things that I thought that I needed, being on my own and stuff like that. And I overloaded all that stuff. And I realized later that it doesn't really mean anything, nor does it add any value back to my money. So I think you just have to kind of realize the things that you have and what is going to be crucial to you as far as like helping you get by day. But everything else can kind of like just fall to the wayside. So things that I thought I needed, like, oh, I need this cable program, or I need Netflix, or whatever. Like, I don't really need a lot of that stuff. And I thought I needed it until like I lost pretty much everything that I had financially. I thought I needed all that stuff, and I didn't. I've been surviving like a year or two off of, like I said, most of my basic necessities, and then whatever else I had left over from when I did have money to pay for a lot of that stuff. So I think what people don't realize is that like there's so much that you just don't necessarily have to have. You don't necessarily have to buy. Even when you think about your groceries, of course you need like, vegetables and things like that are going to help you stay, healthy. But just think about it like this, like that wine or that alcohol and things like that. You don't need that. You want that, but you don't need that stuff because it's not vital to your level of survival. Or like I said, just stuff that you really don't have to have. Like, I know a lot of you all out there are like dog lovers. My fiance, yes, she's my fiance. I actually proposed to her and she said yes. Just wanted to mention that. Like, she has a dog as well too. But even like people all you all who are pet lovers, dog lovers, cat lovers, whatever, that's not something that you have to have. That's something that you want to have. You want to have a pet. And I get the whole emotional support thing, but I'm talking about all of you all who are who just have it for leisure. You don't really need that. So I guess what I'm getting at here is I think people spend money on things thinking that they need certain things when really it's that they want them. But you realize all the stuff that you don't really need, when you go through a hard time, and then you start scaling back and you start saying, hey, do I need to pay for this every month? Hey, is there a better plan that I can do than this one right here? Until you go through a hard time, you're not really going to see that, in my opinion. The third point that I wanted to make, and this is the third lesson that I learned from being broke, was you become more open to different avenues to make money. So when I got out of chemical engineering, when I was in school, the first thing that I would always think is I have to get a job as a process engineer. Mind you, I ignored what my personality was. I ignored the thing that I actually wanted to do. I ignored the things that I wanted to do on the side. I ignored who I was as a human being. And I also just ignored the idea that there were other avenues out there for me and other jobs out there for me that I could actually perform. I thought that I was just limited to just doing a job such as that. So with that being said, I think like being in a situation where you're broke teaches you that there's not just one way, there's many ways. So maybe like for me at that moment, I thought the only thing that I needed to do was get a job in engineering because that was the only way that I was going to have an outlet to my situation. But really, there were many outlets. I could get like a couple jobs, a couple, of course, decent paying jobs to make up all the expenses that I had for my situation. Or I could like go and I could become an Uber driver, or I could do mystery shopping, or I could do website testing. I mean, whatever it was. I think that I had to kind of explore that and understand that I have other talents. And I think like part of it is the idea that I went to school, and going to school, you're taught with the mentality that you're going to be settled into this major that you have decided, and that is your whole life, and that is everything that is about you. I had to get out of that mentality because I never knew that there was any other way of thinking. And what I mean by that is I never knew that there was another possibility for me as a person as far as the skills that I was going to learn. And I think part of it, like I said, was being in school and having that mentality. Another part was hearing all the stuff that other people say. Now, that doesn't mean I was listening or caring what they thought about me, but it was more so that I thought that this was the correct way to kind of go about my life, was to be in the direction of whatever I was taught when I was in school. And that wasn't really it. I was supposed to search to see what it was that I was good at, because the more I was in school, the more that I learned how different I was even than my classmates. Most of my classmates were made to be process engineers because a lot of them were very socially inept. Like, they had no social skills at all. They weren't nice human beings. They weren't good talkers either. But with me, I'm very social, and I had the ability to speak to other people all the time, in a charismatic manner. And I think that that's kind of what differentiated us, which means that I think that we would have different skills as far as like how we would do, in our jobs. My point being is that like I never really explored that possibility. I kind of minimized my scope to whatever my major was. So with that being said, I don't want to get too deep onto the whole major and the whole school thing. I guess I'm just trying to make the point that I would always hear people say that, well, if you went to school for chemical engineering, you should be doing A, B, C, and D. But little do they know that we live in a world where people have a lot of skills. And, when you go to school, especially like higher education, you're taught to be put in a certain box based off of whatever you had done while you were in school. Now, that could be a passion for somebody, but for other people, they don't know any other way. They don't know that there's other skills out for them that may work for them. And that's something that I had to learn because, I had to get the money really quickly, being in a situation where I was, like I said, broke. So here's the two things, like I said, that it teaches you. It teaches you to that like getting another job may take a while. So if it was in your major, it may take a while, and you need something really quick to eliminate those residual bills. The second thing is that you have to think of that. I had to think about that a job may not be the only way. So kind of the stuff that I covered. You have to look to see if maybe there's side jobs that you can do. There's independent contractor jobs you can do. Maybe there's some work that you can kind of do seasonally that they have openings for. You have to almost kind of get creative with the different opportunities that are out there, or more so create opportunities for yourself even. So to me, I think that I had to break out of that mentality, and being broke put me in the mentality that, hey, maybe just searching for a chemical engineering job is not the only way. Maybe I need to do something else. So I think that with that being said, you need to stop limiting your spectrum, and it's also a time for like financial exploration. So seeing what else is out there for you, and then I guess understanding like what your passions are, and like by personality, by things that you've tried and experienced and that you've seen that you like. And like I said, just not like limiting yourself to the only things that you feel like you should be doing because of what you went to school for. So it basically just taught me to just explore different paths. The next lesson that I learned is that you see wealth in ratios instead of seeing them as where you need to make a lot of money to in order to get out of a situation. So in other words, I think that people have this problem really bad. I always hear people saying things like, "Oh, if I make, or if anybody else makes 60K or 100K or 150K, I would be set. I would never have any problems. Or if I had problems, they would be minimal." Your problems actually could be maximum. You don't really know, because what it always comes down to is the ratio of how much debt you have, how many expenses you have, to whatever your income is. So if your only income, for example, is 60K, then all of your expenses per year equals 60K. You're broke. You don't even know it, but you're broke. And you think you're not because you have all this stuff. So you think it glorifies you as a person who's rich or who's wealthy or who has a lot of money. And I think that that's a kind of a silly way to think. It's silly. Not, I don't really blame a lot of people, because most people didn't, like I said, weren't taught, unfortunately, with the mentality that they needed to do something different in order for their money to, I guess, like for them to take home a lot more money, and to think in ratios versus just thinking about making a lot of money. And I mean, think about it, in the media, like, it's glorified to see people who are making a lot of money and showcase that, especially like music artists and people like that, and celebrities who have these decked out houses and have like 7 cars and jewelry and things like that. You see those images and you're like, "Oh, I want a lifestyle like that," because obviously that person's rich because they were able to buy all of that stuff. That person could be broke, and a lot of those people do go broke, and they go broke because they don't really know money, they don't really know finances, and they're not thinking about things in ratios. They're just thinking, "I want all the stuff that my parents could never have," or "I want all the stuff that's going to make all the girls or all the guys like me," or whatever, or that's going to give me all the friends that I want, or that's going to allow me to go wherever I want or do whatever I want, you know. And I think that people portray that image, especially on social media and on television, in order to give people this idea that they can be like that as well too, which I think what it does is it subconsciously builds this mindset that someone needs to make, a lot of money in order to find that level of success that they are trying to find. But really, what being broke taught me basically was that I had a lot of expenses. Like, I had a lot of things left over from when I had lost my job, and I still had to pay all this stuff. I had all this debt. I think I had like almost $3,000 worth of debt per month, and that was like after I had my job. And I think this is after like I lost my job. My job was paying me I think like 55K, and so I mean, like, at the time, that was something I was able to deal with, but I still wasn't really taking home so much money that it was just crazy. Like, I was like doing so well because I still had debts, I still had credit card debt, I still had expenses, I still had student loan debt. So I was nowhere near doing well. It's just there was an appearance that I was doing well on the surface. So that's why I say, like, you just got to think about things in ratios. And you also have to think about the idea of creating other streams of income. Now, I'm not saying that passive income is a real thing, because to some extent you're always going to be monitoring whatever source of income you create for yourself. But I'm just saying that you want to think about different outlets that are going to help you generate more money other than your actual like full-time job that is your only supplement to money. And if you get that lifeline cut off, you'll have nothing but expenses left. And that's what happened to me, is that I saw it in ratios, because when you zero out all the money, the only thing that's left is expenses. So really at that point, your net worth is negative. So that's another lesson that I had to learn, was that wealth is measured in ratios and how much money you can keep, not in how much money that you make. That's a serious myth. So the last lesson that I learned from my experience about being broke is to have a backup plan and to look towards your passion. So the reason why this lesson is very important is because I didn't have a backup plan. And I think most of the people who get in that situation either don't have a backup plan, or their backup plan kind of like flubbed on them for whatever reason. Now, I think it's more the first one than the second one, because that second one's an extreme case, because chances are they're probably trying to build another plan in the meantime. Or first of all, they're probably trying to plan an escape and then trying to build another plan after that. But like if you're like me, and I think most people are, you usually don't have a backup plan because you don't think that you're going to lose your job, or you don't think that something tragic is going to happen where you'll get laid off or you'll get fired or something really crazy will happen. You don't think those things are going to happen to you. And then when they happen to you, you're like, oh my God, I'm devastated. So, I mean, that's okay because you're trying to keep a level head and a cool mind and a positive mind. But I mean, you have to be realistic as well too, with the possibility that if you are working for a company, you could lose your job because it's all dependent on them and how they feel about you, and if they want you in their company, or if something happens in the company and they just have to get rid of you. Like, you just have to think about those possibilities because it's not you running the show. So with that being said, I think that I learned that in the future, if I ever were to get in that situation again, I would need a backup plan in order to kind of rescue me for the time being until I can come up with something that's going to give me a full escape to where I want to get. So I would encourage other people to kind of look at it that way as well too, that they need a backup plan and they need to stop kind of just, I mean, it's okay to live for the moment, but living for the moment where you're just going to kind of just rely on what you got, and then come home, live that regular life of just coming home every day, doing the regular thing where, you eat, you sleep, you chill for a little bit, watch TV, wake up, and then you go to work the next day. I think that there should be some planning. There should be some, hey, in case this happens, I'm going to save this money, or maybe I'm going to build this business, or maybe I'm going to do this thing here on the side. There needs to be that type of thing, and it has to be something that you're passionate about. And really, your passion is what's going to save you, especially if you're a person who is an entrepreneur spirit, who wants to create a passion for themselves. You want to make sure that you create something that is going to be your main passion, and then you can make a backup behind that as well. So I think that that's kind of where I was going with wanting to create like a backup plan, and trying to stress that onto you all as well too. You all should definitely create a backup plan because you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, it's a hard financial world out here, and you always got to have something to kind of back you up. And then a lot of the most successful people, a lot of the millionaires and billionaires who are in the world, they have multiple streams of income. They may not necessarily be passive, but they are streams of income that allow them to kind of back up a lot of the financial means that they have. And they understand, and these are just wealthy people. I'm not talking about rich people, wealthy people who understand the concept of looking at money in ratios versus looking at how much money you make. Because at the end of the day, it's not as important as you think. It really isn't. With that being said, though, I hope you guys enjoy what I had to say today. If you guys like the video and you guys want to see more, and you all are ready for the other 6 videos that are going to be coming this week, then feel free to subscribe to The Hustler's Perspective. If you guys want to check out my Facebook page, feel free to go to the Hustler's Perspective YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out my blog, then feel free to go to hustlersjackpot.com. If you guys want to go to my Facebook page for my blog, then you can go to the Hustler's Jackpot. And if you want to follow my business page on Instagram, then you can go to @thehustlersjackpot. And if you want to go to my personal page on Instagram, you can go to @coolcolas. With that being said, I hope you guys, again, have a good day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And there will be a lot more to come, a lot of really cool topics and interesting things for us to kind of discuss, and, things for you all to learn as well, too. So with that being said, I will see you guys later. Keep hustling.